My phone lit up at midnight. James's text, piercing the quiet. Need to see you. Now. I'm Ryan, 32, a high school teacher in Seattle, married to Emily, father to Lily. My life was a steady rhythm, school, home, repeat, but it felt like a script I didn't write. That message was a spark, threatening to burn it all down. Heart pounding, I grabbed my keys, knowing this choice could unravel everything. I'd met James 3 months ago at Brewed Awakening, a coffee shop near my school. He was a 28-year-old barista, his quick wit cutting through the morning rush. Our first chat was nothing special, just a quip about my usual latte order. But his eyes lingered, and I felt a jolt I couldn't explain. I'd spent years burying that part of myself, the part that didn't fit the life I'd built. But James? He woke it up. I started stopping by daily, our talks stretching longer, deeper. He'd lean across the counter, sharing stories of his art school dreams, his voice steady but alive with something that pulled me in. One day, he slipped a napkin with his number under my cup. In case you ever want to talk outside this chaos, he said. I pocketed it, telling myself it was harmless. But I knew better. Tonight, his text wasn't casual. I drove to the waterfront, where we'd met before, the city lights flickering across the water. James was already there, leaning against his car, his silhouette sharp against the night. Couldn't sleep, he said as I approached, his voice low, urgent. I keep thinking about you, Ryan. Whatever this is, it's real. My stomach twisted. I'd felt it too. Every glance, every brush of our hands. But saying it out loud made it dangerous. James, I'm married, I said, the words heavy. I have a daughter. This can't happen. But even as I spoke, my resolve wavered. His presence was a magnet, pulling at something I'd locked away since I was a teenager, terrified of what it meant. Then why are you here? He asked, stepping closer. The question hit like a punch. I didn't have an answer, not one I could say without admitting the truth. I'd built a life to please everyone else, Emily, my parents, my students, but it left me hollow. With James, I felt alive, like I could breathe for the first time in years. We can't keep doing this, I said, but my voice cracked, betraying me. He didn't move, just held my gaze, the silence thick with unspoken want. I know, he whispered, but I don't know how to stop. We stood there, the night pressing in, the weight of our choices growing heavier. I thought of Emily at home, asleep, trusting me. I thought of Lily's drawings pinned to the fridge, her small hand in mine. But I also thought of the years I'd spent pretending, hiding who I was to fit a mold that never felt right. I need to go, I said, finally, turning back to my car. But as I drove away, James's words echoed. It's real. I knew I'd be back. The spark had ignited, and there was no putting it out. Each day after, I found excuses to see him, a coffee run, a quick chat after school. Every moment was a risk, every glance a step closer to the edge. Emily started noticing, her questions sharper. You're late again, Ryan. Everything okay? I'd nod, lie, and hate myself for it. The tension built, a knot tightening in my chest. I was living 2 lives, one for the world, one for me, and the cracks were starting to show. The lies were piling up, each one heavier than the last. I'd tell Emily I was grading papers late, then meet James at a quiet bar outside Seattle. Our conversations a refuge from the life I was unraveling. At 32, I was Ryan, the dependable teacher, husband, father to Lily. But with James, I was someone else, someone who didn't have to pretend. Every stolen moment with him was a lifeline, but the guilt was suffocating. It had been 2 weeks since that midnight meeting by the waterfront. James and I kept finding ways to see each other. Quick coffee breaks, walks along hidden trails. Each encounter was electric, charged with a truth I couldn't ignore. But the risks were growing. Seattle wasn't a small town, but it wasn't big enough to hide forever. I caught myself glancing over my shoulder, paranoid about familiar faces. Emily's suspicions sharpened. "You're different, Ryan," she said one night, her voice tight as we washed dishes. Lily was asleep, the house quiet except for the clink of plates. "You're barely here, even when you're home." I forced a smile, muttering about work stress, but her eyes searched mine, unconvinced. The lie burned, but the truth felt like a grenade I couldn't throw. At school, I was distracted, my lessons half-hearted. A colleague raised an eyebrow when I fumbled a lecture. "Everything good, Ryan?" he asked. I nodded, but the weight of my double life was crushing. James felt it too. One evening, as we sat in his car by a deserted park, he gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles tense. "This is tearing me apart," he said. "I want you, but I hate sneaking around. It's not fair to anyone." I knew he was right, but the thought of losing him, or Emily and Lily, tore at me. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer, just looked out at the darkening sky, the silence heavy with our shared fear. We were on a tightrope, and every step risked a fall. The breaking point came faster than I expected. I was leaving school when my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "We need to talk. Now." My stomach dropped. I drove home, heart racing, bracing for the worst. She was waiting in the living room, her arms crossed, my phone in her hand. "Who's James?" she asked, her voice shaking. A late-night text from him had popped up, and she'd seen it. I froze, the truth clawing its way out. "He's someone I met," I stammered. Her eyes widened, hurt and anger mixing. "Someone you met? Ryan, you're lying to me. To us." The air felt thick, the walls closing in. I wanted to confess everything, but the words caught in my throat. Lily's laughter from upstairs cut through the tension, a reminder of what was at stake. "I need time," I said, dodging her gaze. Emily shook her head, tears falling. "You're breaking this family apart," she whispered, walking away. That night I lay awake, the divide between my worlds growing wider. James was my truth, but Emily and Lily were my life. I couldn't keep both, but letting go of either felt impossible. Emily's words echoed in my head. "You're breaking this family apart." At 32, I was Ryan, a Seattle teacher, husband, father to Lily, but the truth I'd buried for years was tearing through the life I'd built. James, the barista who'd awakened my heart, was both my salvation and my undoing. After Emily saw his text, the air in our home turned brittle, every glance a silent accusation. I avoided James for days, hoping distance would dull the ache, but ignoring him only sharpened it. My phone stayed silent, but my mind replayed our moments, stolen talks, quiet walks, the way his presence made me feel whole. At home, Emily barely spoke, her questions replaced by a cold distance. Lily, only 6, sensed the shift, clinging to me with worried eyes. "Are you sad, Daddy?" she asked one morning. I hugged her, muttering, "Just tired." But the lie stung. Work offered no escape. Whispers spread among colleagues. Someone had seen me with James at a bar. A parent confronted me after class. "Is it true, Ryan? You're involved with someone?" Her tone carried judgment, not curiosity. I deflected, but the shame burned. Seattle's progressive veneer hid sharp edges. Not everyone accepted who I was becoming. I finally texted James, needing to see him. We met at a diner an hour out of town, a place where no one knew us. He slid into the booth across from me, his usual spark dimmed. "I thought you were done with me," he said, voice low. "I can't do that," I admitted, the words spilling out. "But Emily knows something's up. It's falling apart." He reached for my hand, then stopped, aware of the eyes around us. "I'm scared too," he said. "My roommates are asking questions. They're not okay with this." His pause carried the weight of rejection he'd faced before. We were both trapped, caught between desire and the lives we'd built. The drive home was a blur of dread. Emily was waiting, her expression a mix of resolve and pain. "I deserve the truth, Ryan," she said, voice steady but sharp. "Are you in love with him?" The question hit like a blade. I could have lied, clung to the safety of denial, but I was tired of hiding. "Yes," I said, my voice barely audible. Her face crumpled, and she walked out, leaving me with the echo of my confession. The next day, my principal called me in. "Parents are talking," she said, her tone professional but cold. "This could affect your job." The threat was clear. My secret wasn't mine anymore. I left her office, humiliation mixing with defiance. I wasn't ashamed of James, but the world's judgment was relentless. That night I met James by the waterfront, our usual spot. "I told her," I said, my voice shaking. He nodded, his own fear mirrored in his silence. "What now?" he asked. I didn't know. The truth had set me free, but it had also set everything else on fire. Emily, Lily, my job, all hung in the balance. Yet, standing there with James, I felt a flicker of courage. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The truth was out, and it left scars. At 32, I, Ryan, had confessed to Emily that I loved James, shattering the life we'd built in Seattle. My role as a teacher, husband, and father to Lily was crumbling under the weight of who I was. James, the barista who'd become my anchor, faced his own battles, and together we were navigating a storm we'd ignited. Emily moved out with Lily to her parents' house the day after my confession. Her silence was worse than anger, each unanswered call a reminder of the pain I'd caused. Lily's voicemails, "Daddy, when are you coming home?" cut deeper than anything. I wanted to explain, but how do you tell a 6-year-old her family is breaking because of her father's truth? At school, the whispers turned into stares. A group of parents petitioned for my suspension, claiming I was unfit to teach. My principal, sympathetic but firm, suggested a leave of absence. "It's for the best, Ryan," she said. I left her office, the weight of judgment pressing down. Colleagues I'd known for years avoided me, their silence louder than any lecture. Seattle's progressive mask had slipped, revealing a community quick to judge what it didn't understand. James wasn't spared. His roommates kicked him out, their disapproval clear in the boxes they left by the door. "They called me a phase," he told me, his voice tight as we sat in a borrowed car by a quiet pier. "Like I'm something to fix." His hurt mirrored mine, but his hand in mine was a reminder we weren't alone. Still, the fear lingered. Every public moment risked exposure. Every glance invited scrutiny. We found refuge in small acts of defiance. Late-night drives, shared coffee at out-of-town diners, moments where we could be us without hiding. But the guilt was relentless. I'd betrayed Emily, disrupted Lily's world, and now faced losing my career. James, too, carried the weight of his choices, his art dreams sidelined by the chaos we'd created. One evening, a text from Emily broke the silence. "We need to talk about Lily." My heart raced as I drove to her parents' house. She met me outside, her eyes tired but resolute. "I'm filing for divorce," she said, voice steady. "But Lily needs you. Don't disappear on her." I nodded, throat tight, promising to be there. As I left, her parents' disapproving stares followed me, a reminder of the family I'd lost. Back at the pier, James waited, his presence a fragile anchor. "I'm scared we'll lose everything," he admitted. "But I can't go back to pretending." Neither could I. The fallout was brutal. Friends gone, family estranged, my job hanging by a thread. But with James, I glimpsed a future worth fighting for. We were battered, but not broken, standing on the edge of a life we could claim as ours. The fallout had stripped everything bare. At 32, Ryan, had lost my marriage, my job hung by a thread, and Seattle's judgment weighed heavy. But with James, the barista who'd become my truth, I found a reason to keep going. Our secret was no longer hidden, and though the cost was steep, we were ready to build something real. Emily's divorce papers arrived a week after our talk. Signing them felt like cutting a piece of myself away, but I knew it was the only way forward. Lily was my anchor. We met at a park, her small hand gripping mine as she asked, "Will you still be my dad?" I knelt, promising, always. Her trust gave me strength, even as Emily's parents refused to speak to me, their silence a wall I couldn't breach. At school, the parents' petition succeeded. I was let go, the official reason vague but the truth clear. My relationship with James was too much for some to accept. The loss stung, but it also freed me. I started tutoring privately, leaning on a few loyal colleagues who stood by me. Their support was a lifeline, proof that not everyone judged us. James faced his own reckoning. His former roommates spread rumors, costing him shifts at the coffee shop. He moved into a small studio, his art supplies scattered but untouched, his dreams on hold. "I'm not giving up," he told me one night as we sat by the waterfront, our old meeting spot. "But it's hard." I nodded, knowing the weight he carried. We were both rebuilding, piece by piece. We found solace in a community group for queer adults, a space where we could be open without fear. There, we met others who'd faced similar struggles, rejection, shame, but also resilience. A counselor helped us navigate the guilt, the pain of hurting those we loved. Slowly, we learned to forgive ourselves, to see our love as something worth fighting for, not a sin to hide. One evening, as we walked along the pier, James stopped, his voice steady. "I want a life with you, Ryan, not in the shadows." His words hit hard, a promise and a challenge. I agreed, and we moved into a small apartment together, a space to start over. It wasn't easy, bills piled up, and some neighbors whispered, but we were free to be us. Lily visited, her laughter filling the apartment. Emily, though distant, softened over time, agreeing to co-parent. My parents remained silent, a wound that might never heal, but I held on to hope. James started painting again, his work vibrant with the truth he'd reclaimed. I found new purpose in tutoring, helping kids who felt like outsiders. Standing by the waterfront one night, James's hand in mine, I felt peace. The scars remained, broken ties, lost dreams, but they were part of a life I'd chosen. We'd faced judgment, guilt, and loss, but emerged stronger, living authentically. For anyone hiding their truth, our story is a reminder. The path is hard, but love and courage make it worth walking. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. More stories are coming that will move you, inspire you, and challenge the way you see your own journey. Every story matters, and each one brings us closer to who we are meant to become.